Good evening and welcome to BizNews. I'm Elizabeth Lee together with Tony Lopez.
Good evening, Ben.
Tonight we have for our guest the Managing Partner and CEO of Deloitte Philippines, Mr. Greg Navarro, who is also the Management of Association of the Philippines President for 2014.
Sure. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for being on our show again, Greg.
Thank you for inviting me.
And congratulations on you being the new MAP President for year 2014.
That's more job than congratulatory.
More job?
What do you intend to do at MAP, Greg?
Well, we wish to continue what the MAP has been doing. The advocacy of MAP, last year the theme was inclusive growth. We'd like to continue that. And I think we're going to add good governance to the theme. So the new theme for 2014 is mapping a future of inclusive growth with good governance.
How does that translate into specific goals or projects?
Well, specifically, I think we'd like to continue yung economic cluster natin. As you know, it should be sustained, but more than sustenance, it really has to be expanded. It has so far been a jobless growth, remember that.
Yeah, jobless
and
growth.
I think in the last 3 years, it has been proven more or less that good governance could drive growth and could drive investments into the country.
Yeah. So the investments must create jobs. No? That's the third.
Yeah, I think it
layer.
should be inclusive. It could only be attained if you have jobs.
Yeah. And how does MAP help in attaining jobs?
Well, one is to push reforms, continued reforms. There are two very specific areas that I think has to be focused on by the government and by the private sector that would create jobs. One is agriculture. Agriculture is 19% of the economy that employs 40% of the people.
It has gone to as low as 14.
Yeah, so that's very important. And number two, of course, is manufacturing. More than the PPO sector, is really manufacturing. And very recently, the World Economic Forum has released its survey, and that's where we were ranked not quite high. In the other factors were high, but in infrastructure, which includes energy, ports, roads and bridges, we are 98 out of 144 countries. So that has to be focused on. Last year, the government had poured in a lot of money in infrastructure. That's why construction has contributed 18%. This year, it will contribute 18% of the highest ever in GDP, and hopefully, government will continue.
Construction and real estate. No?
Yeah, and this one, it's tragic, but we should utilize it. This recent typhoon, similar to the experience of Indonesia after the tsunami and Thailand after the flooding, it really fueled a lot of construction opportunities.
Yeah.
So and infra build up. No?
So how can MAP better strengthen that? Because through the years, MAP has always been involved in this cluster. How can we strengthen that even more and accelerate it?
Well, actually, we've been invited. I think they're going to finally formalize the collaboration with the government, particularly now that they've already appointed a czar. So I think MAP and the other business organizations would like to find out exactly, because he said it is going to be driven by private industry. That's what Ping Lacson says. And I believe that, that should be probably the way, majority anyway, could be driven by private companies or private industry. So I think we should push there and see where we really could cooperate. Something that would have meaningful, results or growth in the economy.
So do you have, Greg, like numbers that you're going to be hitting at the end of your term?
Now, what we're hoping is to be able. My time has not yet started, so we're just on the planning stage, but we have already told the government sector that we will be collaborating very closely. We will not just be fiscalizers or critique, but we will help.
Yeah, and particularly good governance, because there was I think Bill Luz was quoted as saying that you really need to put some people in jail.
Well, yes, that is why I think you're very much aware of this, that MAP is the only organization that had set up a whistleblowers fund.
Yes.
Even during the time of, even before we started this in the time of Heidi Mendoza and George Rabusa. Remember that Pabaon scam? Yeah, that was the first. And now, we have already raised quite a bit of sum of money for this new whistleblowers, and in the case of the Poles. And we're supposed to maybe meet next week, actually, on discussing on how this will be handled.
The fund will give money to the whistleblowers.
Yeah, because remember, these whistleblowers, they're not even professionals.
Yeah.
They are, some of them are literally helps,
Yes.
maids. No? So the DOF, I understand, in their they take care of the people. But
Yeah.
how about the families?
Yeah.
You know, they have to take care of the families. So
Especially
even if
the
we give them
education of the
a small
children.
amount, then at least we'll be able to help. And to me, the greatest effect of that is that when we tell them that this is given to you by civil society, this is not big business. These are individual contributions.
Yeah, yeah.
Mahiya naman kayo sa taong bayan.
Yes.
No? Na huwag kayong babaliktad simply because there's a lot of money on the table.
And because they will be bribed, you know.
Yes.
Of course, you know,
Yeah.
and these guys could afford to give them heaven and earth.
Yeah.
They can double the money of what the private sector offers.
Yeah, more than Willie Villarame could give them, I suppose.
And that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then about your particular firm, how is it doing now, Deloitte?
Deloitte Philippines.
Well, we're very happy with the progress of firm. When I joined them, it's about 350 people. We're close now to 400,
400,
after 2 years. And so we're, I guess, rising together with everybody in the economic tide. And there's certainly a lot of interest. I get visitors practically every week, a number of them looking at investing in the Philippines, or at least asking us to do studies for them on what, what they could do, and specifically what industries they could invest in. So these are not just hedge funds or passive investors. These
good.
guys want to set up something.
So
in the
your firm
country.
is also an investment bank?
No, it's not. It's we do have corporate finance operations in Southeast Asia that will be more or less involved in mergers and acquisitions. But new investments is what we're hoping to really promote. In fact, in February, we're going to Japan to do a roadshow, IPO in the Philippines. We also would like to, the PSE would also like to invite listed companies abroad to list in the country. No,
Listed
yes.
companies
Excellent.
abroad.
Just like Sun Life, just like Manulife,
Yes.
no? Because some of Filipino companies are listed in Singapore, etc. Now,
right.
we need heft in the stock, in the capital markets. We need to do more IPOs. So
That
maybe
also.
Yeah.
the avenue, what we're thinking, our firm is thinking, is that we look at the local market and ask people to go IPO.
Yeah.
But why don't we look at the foreign,
Yeah, foreign.
tested, proven, with track record,
Like
large
the
companies?
Toyotas and Nissan.
Yeah, and why don't you list in the Philippines? So
Or the
that's
Samsungs of Korea.
that is the plan next
Because I
year to
noticed,
do.
Greg, out of 234 or more listed companies, there are only about 20 owners at the most.
Oh yes, and there's the same. But look at the bidders in the PPP.
Yeah,
Isn't it all the same names?
Yes.
No more
And,
than 8.
and that's precisely why also the business community, including MAP and Phoenix and all the rest, have been pushing for amendments in the economic provisions of the Constitution. Because remember, there was a big hullabaloo about the ADB study saying there's one or two too big to fail companies. You know?
All right. Before you continue,
Yeah.
we're going to cut to a short break. You're watching BizNews. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Greg. Continue on. The companies you were saying are too big to fail.
Yes, because that's becoming a phenomena because the same companies that are able to bid on these very large projects. And of course, they're also the ones who are able to access the capital markets.
yeah.
As you said, looking at 20 families, actually, if you look at it, that own the wealth of the country. It used to be 60 families. I guess they're married to each other. There's no 20, I don't know. But
20
that's
is my count.
yeah, but that is a
20
particular
owners of 200
concern
listed
because you want to expand the base.
Yes.
Broaden it.
Broaden the base, and hopefully with the influx of legitimate foreign investors, you'll be able to invite the medium-sized companies to join in the bandwagon of bidding for these large jobs.
Yeah.
No? Because
Especially
obviously,
now when the Philippines is actually
yes, it's everybody's interested. BIP is still key. In almost all the foreign trips that I've had, that's always the question. Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, ASEAN as a whole, everybody. So everybody's asking, so what are you doing in the Philippines? What's everybody else doing in the Philippines? Everybody wants to know.
Yeah. So can you name the industries that are actually coming in, looking at,
Well, the Japanese industry, as of now, is still light. No? Cameras, printers, things like that. But I think the heavy guys are looking at it closely. I wouldn't want to wish
Power.
well, but bad. But the flood in Thailand was an eye-opener to them because it affected. They could not sell cars. There's no cars.
That's
because
right.
everybody is there, and this saber rattling by China, I think is causing a lot of
The
problems.
Japanese companies are boycotted in China.
In China, and not just boycotted. Literally, there's some physical destruction.
Stoning
Of
shops.
fields, of companies, of people. So it's very, very difficult to deal with these kinds of things. So the Philippines has become very attractive indeed. So it's happening. I just wish we could put in the right atmosphere. One is always been the first thing, land ownership. Diba? That's always been critical to the foreign investors. They see, so it could be, you could have 50-year leases, etc. But why is it so difficult to do this? Why couldn't it be made, the government make it easier?
yeah.
To
Because
set up a factory?
the current law is.
Yeah, and then the ownership in many nationalized industries. And yet, under the economic community, the Asian Economic Community commitments of the Philippines, we should liberalize free flow of goods and services. And in 2012, we also signed this RCEP. I don't know if people have heard about it. This is the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, ASEAN plus 6 countries. And then there's the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which we're not even part of yet. Which should be
That
done.
it includes
we are
Australia
not willing to
and-
participate.
No, we're willing to. It seems to be a lack of focus. So what is really priority?
There's a
I know,
fear.
I know, but we have difficulty now because of Typhoon Yolanda. But somebody should be taking care of these things as well.
So what is your view, Greg, then on ASEAN integration, especially with manufacturing? You're saying that manufacturing, we should also concentrate on that. So what's your view on that in the light of Philippine context?
Yeah, we just have to be more competitive. And in manufacturing, the number one issue is energy. Number one issue is cost and logistics.
It's about 20% of production cost now, electricity.
Which is the number one export is electronics. And that's highly
Dati number one cost is labor, no?
Yeah, and then labor. Labor would be
10% lang pala.
But I think China is becoming expensive now in terms of labor, no? But India has a huge inflation that brings down the cost. So as far as Vietnam is also, has a high inflation rate, so that brings down their cost of labor. So those are the things that we need to put policies in, rationalize, and also settle once and for all the perennial problem between the Department of Trade and Department of Finance. Department of Trade willing to give incentives, and the Department of Finance saying we're losing money.
Yes.
So that has to be, somebody has to decide once and for all.
Put
What is the
clarity to
strategy?
it. Put clarity to it.
What is the strategy? No, we cannot change always
Mamaya
the rules
nag-register ka, tapos
midstream.
ayaw na pala ng
Yeah.
BIR. No?
Or they change the rules midway.
Yeah.
And
You're
usually these
already
are
here,
for
they change
5-year
the rules.
contracts, di ba? Net
Yeah, you have to
operating
be,
loss carry over.
they should know, an investor
Yes.
should know that the rules are what they're going to be in the next, at least for the lifetime that you're doing business in the Philippines.
And I think that's one of the things that MAP is actually, just a lot of businesses are members of MAP, and
Yeah,
this is exactly what they're facing.
We're pushing for the land use law. We're pushing for the FinTax, rationalization of the fiscal incentives, things like that. No? On top of course, the Freedom of Information Act, the Whistleblower Protection Act, and things like that.
Greg, about the IPO, inviting companies which are listed abroad to list
here.
in Manila, how good is the reception so far?
So far,
Sabi
we're
nila,
just
ang mahal daw magpalista sa Manila. That's why there's so much backdoor listing going on.
Well, on one hand, it's actually expensive to do a backdoor listing.
Expensive.
The reason only that they do backdoor listing is because of the track record requirements. So you need
three
3
years back,
years,
3 years
you
back.
need so much revenue, so much net income. So people would do a backdoor listing, but they still go through a rigorous process. But then you already have a listed company, no? Because if you do regular listing, it could take actually quite a while, and actually a little bit, I would say, more expensive in the long run. So backdoor listings do work if you already have. You could do also this listing by introduction, diba?
By way of introduction.
So no, you don't have yet a track record,
But you can be listed already.
You could be listed, but you don't sell yet to the public immediately until, you know.
You're established.
But in the Philippines, as you said, listing is really more of estate planning rather than raising capital.
To evade inheritance tax.
Yeah. So it's what we
Also,
really
it's a
should.
real estate transaction.
Yeah. So what you should really
To
push
avoid
for
the
is
capital gains tax.
really capital markets,
Yeah.
capital markets development. That's why you need wider participation.
Capital markets, you mean bonds.
Bonds, yung mga well, I don't want to say mortgage-backed securities, but something similar. ADRs and a lot of these other exotic. We don't even have bonds. The bond market is very small.
Yeah. In addition to just equities, no?
Yeah, not just equities.
And we're mature enough anyway to have those, like the
Oh, we're
likes of
sophisticated.
derivatives.
We have
and,
among the best bankers in the
Look at
region.
those running people,
Yeah.
running financial in Singapore,
Indonesia.
in Hong Kong,
Yeah.
Indonesia.
Thailand, no? Mga Filipino.
A lot of Filipinos
Yeah.
are there. So we have the sophistication and
The expertise.
we have the money. I think we have the
I
money.
think
Training
so
and
too.
experience.
Yes.
So why isn't that happening faster? But before you
Confidence.
answer that, we're going to
Yeah.
cut to a short break. You're watching BizNews. We'll be right back. We're speaking with Greg Navarro. Welcome back. So Greg, why not now? Why can't we accelerate this?
No, I think this is the opportunity because if you look at the stock market, if you look at investments, even in the DTI, the new investors, 2/3 of people who now invest in the last 2 or 3 years in the stock market and in domestic business are Filipinos.
Yeah, Philippines.
So money is coming back, or Filipino money is being invested. And there's no other, I would say, measure of confidence if you see your own people investing.
Yes.
And so this is very good indicators
Your
for the
own
foreign.
people
Yeah.
investing is
In their
more
own-
stable. No?
Yeah.
Yes,
Kasi
it will
hindi
not fly
scary
away.
yan, eh. They know the market.
They know the
on
market.
the palm of their
And
hand.
so this is what the foreign investing community is looking at. Hey, the Filipinos themselves have confidence in their market. Maybe this is really the right time to look at the Philippines and put in your investments. And so confidence. And you could say whatever you want in the government, but that is the one thing that they did right. I think they put in the right atmosphere that this country, this government can be trusted to do the right thing.
Yeah.
This government can be trusted not to steal. No? Not to steal.
A certain point, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
At certain levels.
Certain levels.
We're still dealing with a lot of
On another topic, Greg, yung
Yeah.
sinabi mo, we are now an arbitration center
Oh, yes.
next to Switzerland, Singapore, and Washington, D.C.
No, we're trying to. Not yet, but we're trying to. What has happened is finally, after 14 years, a law was passed on the use of arbitration as an alternative dispute resolution, arbitration, mediation, and other forms. And we now have an IRR. We started as an arbitration arm of the Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, and it was set up separately as the Philippine Dispute Resolution Center, Inc. And so that is being pushed, and we have almost everybody on board, including the Supreme Court. because it could really unclog the whole.
You don't need to go to the courts.
Yes.
Yeah.
One very specific advantage of arbitration is what we call party autonomy. It's the parties that decide. You decide to go to arbitration, so it's in your agreement. You choose the arbitrators, so it's also in your agreement. You choose what rules do you want Philippine laws
To prevail
to
on
prevail
that.
on or to
You
in
provide
the
that in your
Yes.
contract.
Yeah.
No? Joint
you
venture
want
agreements.
ICC, International Chamber of Commerce rules, you want UNCITRAL rules, you want the New York Convention rules, fine. That could all be done in the Philippines. We have all the experts here. And we also have foreign arbitrators who are equally accredited with the PDRCI.
So what specific projects are subject to
Commercial,
arbitration?
any commercial
Yung
arbitration.
airport, di ba? The conflict
Except
between-
construction.
Except
Because
construction.
construction, by presidential decree, is under the Construction Industry Arbitration Commission. That was PD a long time ago. And that's way ahead. I think that started in the late 80s or mid-80s. Marcos was still here. And that has worked very well. I understand in the SIAC, it only takes 6 months, an average of 6 months, and the case is done.
Wow.
And the case is
6
done.
months, huh?
6 months. In the case of PDRCI, we have a policy that the tribunal should finish within 1 year.
1 year.
Otherwise, they come to the board to justify why they're delayed.
Bakit yung airport project sa Singapore, yung project dito, dinala sa Singapore, took more than 3 years?
Yeah, that's still ongoing. We
Still
won there, I
ongoing,
understand. But there's another one. There's another
One in
case
Washington, D.C.?
in the United
World
States.
Bank,
And there's another one in the Court of Appeals here, I think. So, there's
So paano yan?
There's a lot of cases.
Does the PDR harmonize these 3 venues?
Oh yes, all of them. We have
You can agree
like
to
in
go to
Singapore, the
PDR.
SIAC, Singapore in Arbitration Commission. We work closely together with them. We have mutual recognition of arbitration, and this is one that really, again, the government should encourage. In Singapore, you know why it's very famous? Because 50% of the fees of the lawyers who arbitrate are tax-free.
Tax-free, ha?
Because the government really wants to push it. So now all the
What do you mean
lawyers.
tax-free? To the, let's say, Philippine company or to the
No, to
Singapore?
the-
To the lawyer,
arbitrator.
to the arbitrator.
If you're appointed arbitrator, I pay $100,000. 50% of that is tax-free in Singapore.
So you
Because
pay only tax
precisely
on the
they want
50,000.
arbitration.
What a nice
Yes.
incentive.
We precisely want the parties to go
Dito,
to arbitration.
itatax
Yeah.
yan?
Dito,
The
everything is
entire
taxable.
100,000?
Of course, everything is taxable dito.
Dollars yun, di akit ka kagad sa 32% tax bracket.
Well, yeah, after 500,000 pesos, it's 32%. But it's incentive because the government realized that you go to court and it could take a long time.
It costs more.
It
Is
costs
that in
more,
our
it could take a long time.
arbitration law na tax-free yung ano?
No, there's
arbitration?
no incentives there.
Yeah.
No incentives. It's just that it encourages the parties to, and the court pushes it. In fact, now, if you have a court case, the first thing the judge will ask you is,
Arbitrate.
can we go to mediation or arbitration first? And then if you cannot agree, then just come
Out
back.
of court
that's
settlement.
better.
Dapat naman ganun
Yeah,
muna,
that's
I
di ba?
think so.
Out
Because
of
there's,
court muna.
because very few naman yung talagang, and a lot of the cases are very technical
Maganda sa
in nature.
mediation and arbitration, there are no losers. Both law firms can claim to have won.
Well, it depends on the final results. But you choose the arbitrators. Of course, you choose people with probity and competence and everything, and you could choose experts to tell you what exactly this is. We were very, very happy that, for instance, the issue in the water, the Manila water and Maynilad, there was an arbitration clause because I think at that time it was IFC and Salomon Brothers who crafted the agreement and put in arbitration as
In the case of Philippines.
dispute resolution.
Philippines.
No, in that case I think it's UNCITRAL rules. I don't know the venue, but that's what we're saying. You could use any rules, but the venue can be here.
Anong advantage nung nilagay nila yung arbitration clause yung sa kontrata nilang dalawa?
Well, the advantage
They'll go
is,
through
again,
that first.
yung party autonomy, then they choose
They
the
don't
people.
need to sue each
Yeah.
other.
No,
muna.
there's no such thing here as forum shopping. Because you
May
choose
pag
yours.
dinala mo
you
sa
choose yours.
arbitration, di ka na pwede magdemanda sa court.
Hindi na. While it's being arbitration, I think there are very, very few cases where the court could intervene during the arbitration. Kasi nga, it recognizes, hey, you put this in your contract. Why are you reneging on that?
Yeah.
So why are you reneging? You agreed to go to arbitration.
Yeah.
So it is very useful.
But
I'm
are
very
there
happy with
enough
that process.
specialists, lawyers, experts, or constitutionalists to
handle
an
this?
arbitration
Oh, yes, yes.
setup here?
Yes, I'm a non-lawyer, but
Yeah.
I'm president of the association, and I'm one of the few non-lawyers there. We have architects, we have accountants, because you have to have some industry or topic expertise. To
Paano
do
ba
arbitration.
procedure, Greg? Halimbawa kami, nag-away kami, we are partners. When we nitpick on a point, we go to you?
Yeah, you
Before
go to
going to court?
PDRCI, the Philippine
Yeah.
Business Association, and you present, this is my arbitration clause. So we look at it, okay, so we could do that. So we ask you to sign an agreement that you will abide by the rules of PDRCI. And then we ask you to make your submissions. And then you choose your arbitrator.
You form the panel?
Yes, you choose an arbitrator, and those two will choose the chairman. So it could be a sole arbitrator if it's a small amount. No? It's really up to you. You want a panel
But
or you want
usually
a sole
this is a
arbitrator?
civil case or damage case.
Yeah, pag criminal, you cannot
Yeah.
arbitrate a criminal
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
So it's usually commercial. It's really usually money.
Compensation.
Yeah, compensation. So it has, our experience in the last 10 years has been very, very informative, and I think people come out happy.
Happy.
Okay, we're going to continue this discussion. We'll be right back. You're watching BizNews. So, Greg, what's the biggest
Case that has been
Case.
brought to the PDR.
So far, I think we have one case where the claimant has put forward close to 50 billion pesos in his claim. And then the respondent had put also a counterclaim
Counterclaim.
of half of that, of 25 billion. So you're arbitrating 75 billion. So you look at
Ganun
that.
pala yung pagsukat.
So you
What is
add
the
both.
smallest or the, ano ba yan?
Oh, the smallest was a couple of 100,000.
100,000 dadaling pa sa'yo?
Because that's what in their clause. So they appointed a sole arbitrator. So a sole arbitrator that was probably paid 20,000 pesos, had one hearing, and decided it.
Na-decided na yan?
Yeah, decided.
200,000
yeah, but
pesos.
it's still good because it costs less.
Oh
Costs
yes,
less for both.
it's very efficient. And you rent your own venue. We don't have.
rent your own venue.
You rent. You want to go to a hotel. You pay for it anyway. You want to go to a small
Right.
room in a restaurant. You pay for it. Go there. So it's up to you. You decide everything. That's the beauty of party autonomy.
Yun pala ibig sabihin ng party authority. Now, we have ended the year, no? 2013. Anong outlook for 2014?
I think we're ending the year. We don't have the statistics yet for the
7%
last
growth.
quarter, right? But
Below 7 ang last quarter, but
it
above 7
probably.
ang first 3 quarters.
Yeah, the
So,
first 3 quarters was close to
7.3.
7.3, 7.8. The third quarter was high. Of course, we're looking at Typhoon Yolanda affecting. They said about 8.5% reduction. We don't know yet, but the lowest is probably going to be 6.9.
6.9.
For 2013. It may be tough to replicate that in 2014. Most of the statistics, most of the projections says between 6.5 to 7.5 in 20, because I think infrastructure, construction,
Constraints.
private, both public and private is going to continue.
Yes.
Particularly the rehabilitation requirements. I think the BPO sector is going to continue. I don't see private construction. Look at the fort. There's 30, 40 buildings
Yeah.
coming up there. So I think that is going to continue. So we need to, if we really want to add to that, as I said, we need to focus on agriculture and manufacturing.
And agriculture and manufacturing go together because what is manufacturing? You just process the agricultural products, no?
Well,
That's a
that's
basic raw
one, because
material,
now even our agricultural product is being exported raw.
Yeah.
Di ba? Almost no processing.
Yeah.
Kasaba chips.
You need more
things like
value
that.
added.
Yeah, we
down
need
the
to
Wala
do
road.
naman
Yes.
tayong manufacturing to speak of, di ba?
Very
Outside of
little.
the-
Electronics lang. It's 70%
Meron tayo
electronics practically.
computer printers, mga
Yeah,
ganun.
light manufacturing, furniture, things like that. So we need to put
Some
in some
auto.
heavy.
Industrial, yung
Well,
petrol.
auto.
Auto, yeah.
Industrial, petrol, meron.
Yeah,
Because
to a
content
certain extent, but that's not export-oriented.
Yeah,
It's local market. So
Although in the third quarter of 2013, the best performing was manufacturing in the industry sector.
yes,
Largely because of construction.
but it's very small. It's
Kasi
a low base.
construction pala is counted as industry, no?
No, yeah, construction is part of industry. They're highest, 18%. Last in 2013, 18%. Ang construction growth. Manufacturing, agriculture is 2.5%. Services is, I don't know, less than 6.5 or 8%. So,
Nag-slow down sila.
yeah,
but
it's really construction.
manufacturing went up, no?
Infra, I think half of that is because of public. Because public, in 2013, the government increased spending by almost 45% from
The
prior
infra
years.
spending,
From prior years.
And that was the spending that was suspended in 2011.
Yes, they did. No, half of 2010, and then in 2011 they started releasing. 2012 they really released a lot as early as February.
Because they did not spend 147 billion in 2011.
Yeah, that was
Then they released that together with the annual
immediately.
appropriation.
So that fuels. That's why the growth in 2012 was 45%. In 2013, I correct myself, it's 31% growth, but on top of the 45. So it's a large
Almost
sector.
75%.
Yeah, and private construction is obviously
Terrific,
up.
no?
And it's not cheap. You know? I'm surprised at the prices that's going and gobbled up over a weekend. You know, well, the building next to our building, 30-story building, was sold over a weekend without advertising.
Over the weekend?
Over a weekend.
30
Saturday,
stories,
Sunday. Yeah.
So there's no fear of what they call
The
the
bubble.
bubble? Oh.
As of now,
Because I've gone to 3 or 2 dinners. They talk about bubble, especially in the high-rise now.
yeah, there is a big concern on the residential.
Residential.
But
not on
there's
the
a
office space.
Office space is short.
It's lacking
Sure,
still.
Makati and Taguig. Put that demarcation line. EDSA.
There's about 7% shortage, no?
Yeah. On the other side, the old Makati, tell me which building, which of those construction is office building?
Yeah.
Nothing. All
Puro
those are
residential.
residential. The only new building there, office, is Zuilig. That's the only one. Part of the one near
Kay Bobby Amping,
Ayala.
bagong gawa. Ano?
But that's still, that will not come online yet until maybe 2 years from
So,
now.
kukunti ang commercial buildings.
It's all in
Puro
the gig, the
residential.
commercial and
Yeah, it is.
The BPO, etc. And even then, there's a lot of demand that's not filled up.
So, there's very little vacancy now on office space. There's a shortage and high occupancy rate.
Yeah, the one next to us, they're just digging a hole. There's already reservations
Ang ganon.
It's
for
incredible.
2015, 2016.
Office yan, office.
Office. This part of the Net Lima Plaza. They're building. A lot of people already came to our offices in the Net Lima, looking at how it's a green building, how we've done it, because they're reserving already for the next building that's coming up 2 years from now. So unbelievable interest in office space.
That shows the vibrancy of business, no?
Yeah, that really shows confidence.
So there could be a bubble on high-rise
High-rise
residential,
condos,
but not on the high-rise office space.
As on the residentials, there is you still have to stratify it because there's this
Sa
20 square meter, 50 square meter
Yeah.
thing
Malakas
that's
pa
selling
din
like
yan, malakas
that's selling
yan.
like hot.
Pero
Yeah.
high-end daw, those being purchased by these 20 families.
No,
medyo
that
ano
does
na.
not have any. That has no recession at all. That's always
20 families,
selling. I remember talking to. This is anecdotal, so I don't know how true it is. The old Guillermo apartments,
Yeah,
Yes.
alarming yan.
and so we were talking. And so how is it selling? Oh, he says the high end is selling very much. The low end is not. So what is the high end? 100 million pesos. So what is the low end? 50 million.
50 million.
And so we're discussing, so who are the buyers? Well, these are people who are already near retirement or have retired. They have huge properties, maybe in Forest Park, in Dasma, etc.,
Conversion.
that they could sell at 350 million. So why not? And then buy 100 million condominium, and you still have
200 million net.
money to spare.
Yeah. For the rest of your life.
Yes, or to give away to your children. So again, the conventional wisdom says is you give to your children. But said, I cannot give to my children an equal amount in Forbes Park and Dasmariñas. So might as well give them the money and live happily ever after. Those are the buyers now. So I said, it's anecdotal, but that's what I
You've got
I
a 20
found out.
square meter versus one that's probably
Yeah. So it's the one that is between maybe 5 to 12 to 15 million.
Yeah.
Yun ang
That
may
is the one that's a bit
potential ng
of
bubble,
potential, but as of now, it's not. It's still
Yung
selling.
low end, yung the OFW market, still very
And
strong.
BPO,
BPO.
because they want to be near their,
Right.
so
Yeah.
they'll
These are
join.
the 20 square meter units.
Yeah,
No?
because you just sleep. It's like a hotel room. You
Okay.
really just want to sleep.
We're going to cut to a short break. You're watching BizNews. We'll be right back.
We will rent it for you if you
So
want.
Greg, 2014 is a good year, relatively.
I anticipate that it would be, barring any man-made or natural calamity. Again,
Construction will remain strong. BPO will remain strong.
I think
Exports may weaken, no?
export, not exactly because
Because I noticed there was a decline in imports.
but
which
Japan
reflects-
is increasing.
Japan.
The last 2 years had made a 2% growth GDP, and the U.S. will likely make 2% for
So, and
2013.
these are our export
So
markets.
that is
no?
going to be, it's still Japan, China in
Yes.
the top three, di ba?
Yes.
Japan, US, China, and surprisingly, South Korea, Singapore, ASEAN is going to be a big
Pero
player.
it's a good year. What about the labor creation? We need
Employment.
to create, 2 million jobs a year, di ba?
At least, because
To
doing nothing, we create 1 million jobs.
Yeah.
But you have 1.9 to 2.5 million unemployment. So you
Entrance,
need to make at least 2 million.
2 million.
And that can only be done by 2 sectors, manufacturing and
In
agriculture.
agriculture.
And I think everybody knows that. We are a country that knows all the solutions, but seems to be unable to implement the solution,
Implementation.
You
execution.
need to develop
Yeah.
agriculture because that 70% of the population is there. And the poorest of the poor are there, the fishermen, di ba?
And you're driving away the young people to the cities.
Yeah.
And that's a bad. You have to look at China, you have to look at India, and you know that's a bad phenomenon. We should bring them back to the countryside.
I noticed that a big population is not a problem, no? Kasi China with 1.4 billion, recently they realized that there were not enough of them. So they discarded their one-child policy.
In 15 years, that will be a big problem. By 2030,
They will
by
have social
2050,
problems, no?
from 1.3 billion, China is going to be 900 million.
Ganun kabilis
Yes.
sila. Maubos.
Because it's already, the one-child policy was 1979. See, that's almost
So one
a whole
generation.
generation
One generation.
of one child. And the study says that they should not have had put that in because it is natural when your income increase that the families go down.
That's right.
That the families,
And
because
as you get educated,
You should get
no?
educated,
as you
right?
get
The
educated,
women have
families go
fewer
down.
children,
Well, look
no?
at Singapore, di ba?
Yeah.
They're also
Sisi
regretting.
sila.
That's right,
They had a
yeah.
two-child, well, it's not a policy, but remember, I don't know if you know, in the 80s, if you have a third child,
Yeah.
he cannot go to school as good as the first two. In
Ganun.
Singapore, last priority ka.
Ngayon,
If
iniba
there's
na
a
nila.
hospital bed that's empty in the 80s, or a competition between the first two child and the third child, they'll give it to the first two child. That was also a policy of Singapore. But now, they want
But
people
now
to have
they're
children.
encouraging. Yeah.
Because they realized it was a bad policy.
Yeah.
China was particularly, because they had average six. Filipinos had average 5, they were kids. They had average of 6 before 1979
China.
to 1. Can you imagine that? So it's a big, so I think maybe the opponents of the RH bill are correct, and to a certain extent, that having a young population, but the modifier has to be young and educated
Yes.
population.
Yeah.
Pero ikaw naman, personally, 2040 is going to be a hectic but a good one for you.
We anticipate that it should be. It
Should
should be, and it's going to be a happy new year, hopefully.
Yeah. Well,
It's going to be a growth
Happy New
year.
Year.
More.
Or a prosperous new year.
Yes.
Let's
Happy
be
New
safe.
Year, Greg. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Happy New
advance
Year.
Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you, Greg, for being on our show. More power to you.
Thank you very much.
You watch another episode of BizNews. I'm Elizabeth Lee, together with Tony Lopez. See us every Monday at 7 p.m. We'll see you again next week. Have a good night and God
Happy New
bless.
Year.
Happy New Year.